Ceri Jones.
Hi Gavin, thanks for coming on and having a chat.
Thank you very much, Ceri, and thanks for the opportunity to come on and share my passion with you and the listeners.
Oh, yeah, appreciate it. Pleasure's all mine. Have you been out fishing at all?
I did. I went on the still waters. We went to Manningford, I think it was 3 weeks ago for the first time, and that was a good day out. Some nice fish. It was a last minute thing. We booked to go to Avington, and plans changed last minute, and we were looking for an option B, and we heard good things about it, and we decided to head down that way instead.
So you still do the still water scene, even though your passion is the river?
Predominantly in the winter months now. I try and stick to the rivers throughout the main part of the season. But I do still enjoy the still waters, and I always try and get a couple of sessions out on the boat, whether that's Clywedog or Brennig. I do still love that loch style fishing. You're
from Carmarthen, but you're living in Llandilo now, yeah?
Carmarthen, but I've lived. God, I lost count how many times we moved house since I was a child. I've lived, quite a few places. But Carmarthen boy originally, living in Llandilo now. We also lived, and this is what lit the fire really with the river fishing. My parents took over a hotel in a small little market town called Llanybydder on the Teifi.
I know it.
There we are. And the hotel is a stone's throw from the river.
All right, yeah.
Now I was 7, I think, when we moved there, and by that point I'd already been fishing a good 2 or 3 years with my grandfather, and that was really the start of the fishing then.
Do you know what? I caught my first sea trout on the Teifi.
Did you really?
My very first evening, I had 3 or 4 I had actually. They were all identical, like peas in a pod. They were like £1.50 they were, and they were all at the tail of the pool and textbook stuff, just cast across, and they would come in round, bang. They must have just come in the pool,
Where would that have been?
In Llanybydder. God knows the name of the structure bit. Yeah.
Well, such a long time ago, I always thought of it as sort of the upper beat and the lower beat, one being above the bridge and one being below. Can you remember if it was above or below?
I can't remember. I was taken there, I was. Do you know what? I can't remember the guy's name now.
Lovely water.
Was a long time ago. Yeah, I loved it. But I wanted to have a chat. I got loads of things I want to talk to you about, but one of the things which, when we spoke last, you mentioned that you acquired a bit of the Towi, and I thought, right, I've got to get you on, because out of the podcast, the most popular ones that anything to do with wild fishing, wild trout, especially Ireland, and anything to do with Welsh sea trout. I can tell by the analytics, all the listeners. So I thought, I got to get you on. So
great.
Tell me a little bit more how that came about then. You've got this stretch of the Towi, the Pontgaredig Estate, yeah?
Pontgaredig Estate fishing, yes, yeah. So we go back to 2019 really, and I was asked by the previous owner, Arthur Howard, whether I'd like basically to take on the maintenance of the beat. He was from mid-Wales, I suppose in the last few years really, would only come down a few times a year. So he was really looking for somebody to take care of the beat when he wasn't there, keep the place looking tidy, the grass cut, and, he said you can treat it as your own and fish it when you like.
Wow.
The reason why I took that on was because the chap who had looked after it for him previously, Alan, he'd done it for him for years, and Alan fell unwell, I think, and so wasn't able to do it anymore. But I had big boots to fill because Alan had certainly done a great job of keeping the place immaculate. I gave Arthur a call, actually, a few nights ago, just to go through a bit of the history of the beat with him again.
Oh, yeah.
And, yeah, I think what the connection was is Graham Harris was involved with Hamden.
Right.
And at the time, the beat, as you see it there now, is credit to Arthur because, he purchased the beat in 1997, and as soon as he purchased it, he set about basically making it his own. He reconstructed a lot of the banks, he put the croys in, the blockstone, and to do that then, I think he needed the involvement of Graham Harris.
All right.
Yes, and I think he advised him then as well on, where he should put the croys and the blockstone, etc. He did a cracking job of it, and he made the beat what it is today.
And how long is the beat then?
It's about 1 kilometre long, which is probably longer than people think, but it starts just below the junction of the River Towi, so that's the junction beat in the Pontgaredig Estate.
Yeah.
And my water stretches almost down as far as the pump house, well below Pontgaredig Bridge.
Right.
So all in all, it's about 1 kilometre of water.
And it's always been private?
Yep, always been private. There's a piece of the puzzle I haven't been able to put together, but from going back through the titles, I can see that it was acquired by Vrunneland, which is a mansion house just above the beach, downstream. It should be Vrunneland Estate then. I think they acquired it back in the 60s. Now, I was always of the belief that Corder Estate stretched from Llandailo Bridge all the way down to Pontgaredig Bridge. And there are the Corder Estate trustees referenced within my title, so I suspect that the top half of the beat was under the ownership of the Corder Estate at one time.
Right.
And then how, I don't know, but would have transferred to Vrunneland. Now, Vrunneland, that was where President Jimmy Carter stayed when he came to fish the Towi in the 80s, I think it was. And after I purchased the beat last year, I met with the new owners of Vrunneland. That was sold in 2020. And I met with the owners, and I think the president at that point had just died. And we were talking away, and he brought up a photo on his phone of Jimmy Carter actually stood in his doorstep.
Really?
Yeah, which was great.
I remember people talking about when Jimmy Carter came over, because I think they fished Clywedog, and they named a bay in Clywedog actually after, because they stocked it. They stocked one of the bays in Clywedog for him to come, just like a press thing. And they call it now Carter's Bay.
Of course, yeah, Carter's Bay, which I never made the link previously.
Yeah.
But no, that makes sense now.
So you've had it a year. You've had one full season this year, have you?
Yeah, it went through, actually about this time last year. It was quite a process. Yeah, it took a while to complete for various reasons, but it was an opportunity of a lifetime, Ceri. And I started looking after the beat in 2019, and I was lucky. I basically had the place to myself for 6 years, and I've spent hundreds of hours fishing there during that period, and really come to know the beat. And you put your heart and soul into something like that, and to be fair, it was a lot of work. A lot of grass cutting, probably a full day every 2 weeks. Yeah, we were speaking to Arthur a couple of times a week, and I just started to get the hint that he would be happy to sell. Then I thought, well, my next move surely is to make an offer. I didn't for a while because I thought, well, things are great as they are. Will I upset him by making an offer? How will he feel about the whole thing? But I thought in the end, bugger it. And hey, it worked out. It was an opportunity of a lifetime. And ultimately, I couldn't bear to see anybody else take it over, and
you'd lose it.
Have to do it. You know what they say about cutting another man's lawn. I take a lot of pride in my grass, and
How does it work when you buy a stretch or the fishing rights? Is it for a certain length of time, or is it yours now?
So I think that because this was a learning curve for me, I think that can depend on whether the actual fishing rights are attached to the land title.
Right.
So in my case, they were, but they're not in all cases. Like, I think a lot of angling clubs sometimes will often own the fishing rights, but not the land. They'll just have an easement to access their fishing rights.
Right.
So in my case, it was pretty simple because they'd never been detached.
Oh, right. So you've got the land as well?
Yes.
Right.
And that was something that I wanted to make sure was going to be the case, because to me, the place is special because the riverbanks, the surrounding woodland, the river, it's a package. Yeah. And, I wanted to make sure that I had it all.
I guess it's part of you, isn't it? You've fished it. I remember talking to you before. You've been fishing both the Cothi and the Towi since a young boy. So it's
very young, yeah.
How did it all start for you then?
So I think I must have been 5 years old, if not younger. I was very fortunate to grow up with 3 grandfathers, with one grandmother having remarried before I was born. 2 of my grandfathers, my mother's father was big into shooting and fishing, predominantly sea fishing, and he also did the seine nets in the estuary, on Towi estuary. Whereas my father's father, he was a fanatic nighttime sea trout fisherman. Now, his name was Fred Perry, and with a name like Fred Perry, he'd have to be a special man. And he was, Ceri, he was a wonderful man. And he was the one that really got me into fishing and fly tying. I can remember I'd go and stay with your grandparents, and you'd get up in the morning. I'd come downstairs and I could smell the sewing in the house. He'd been out the previous night fishing, and then I'd go and use the bathroom downstairs, open the door, and there they were laid in the bath. So those are some of my first memories, of his sea trout fishing exploits. And then not long after that, I'd been nagging him senseless then, and he started taking me with him at night, and quite often I'd come on to where he used to fish, but I'd go with him, and he used to drive the car almost to the beat at that time, and I'd go down, I'd join him on the riverbank for half an hour or so, and then I'd go up into the car, listen to the radio, and then I'd always leave the window down a little bit on the car, and then I'd just wait for him shouting. And he'd say, "Gavin, here he is." And I knew then the rundown because he had the fish on. And that happened a lot.
So you didn't fish much then, but you just went like going with him?
I think then I can remember there was a bit of nervousness, about the night.
Yeah.
And I'd be fine up until the point where it went completely dark. And then a bit of nervousness would set in, and then perhaps I'd feel a bit more comfortable sitting in the car and waiting for him to shout. Mind you, it is probably a better way out, really, of leave him do the work and I'll sit in the car and wait till he's got a fish on.
Yeah.
But, I even found that exciting, just waiting for him to shout when he had one on.
Your senses are heightened in the dark, everything, innit? And it's like...
Yes.
I remember, I've told this story before, John Wilshaw, he was the editor of Trout and Salmon many years ago. He was telling me a story one day. He was fishing for sea trout, and something spooked him, scared him on the river, and he legged it back to the car. And so he's running across his field in the dark towards the direction now of the car, and all of a sudden he hit a cow lying down sleeping. So he said it frightened the shit out of him. He fell on this cow. He said he didn't know who was frightened most, him or the cow. The cow jumped up, he went flying, and he just legged it. It was quite a funny story when he was telling, but it was in stitches.
It's easily done. I've walked up on it myself and not realised there's a cow laying in front of me until I've heard it chewing the cud. It is easily done.
And when they cough in the dark, it sounds like a human cough.
Yeah. Funny enough, I've got a scary story myself. Well, not a scary story as that's what you just gave, but this beating question here now. Perhaps what I'll do, I'll outline first where he used to fish, and then it'll set the scene really for this story. Which he used to fish a stretch in Abergwili, just outside Carmarthen, and the stretch was called River Towi, but known as Foster's because it was owned by a chap called Eric Foster.
Yeah.
Short stretch really, but absolutely stunning nighttime stretch. Picture perfect. If you could design a nighttime stretch, that would have been it. Now, my grandfather was big mates with Eric Foster, and I would have said in the last 20 to 30 years of my grandfather's fishing life, that's where he spent most of his time. Yes, some of the greatest memories I'd have of my grandfather fishing were early season and these big fish he'd hook. And you'd never see these fish. He'd be playing them, and you could hear the reels screaming with these fish tearing up and down the river.
Wow.
And they come off. I can particularly remember one. God, he played that fish for some time, and his reel was screaming. And I remember it coming off, and he had some choice words that night. But you can only imagine what sort of fish they were, fresh off the tide. Incredible.
You've had some nice ones over the years, have you?
I have, yeah. I have had some nice ones. Not as big as his as yet. But, yeah, I think my biggest at night is 11 and a half. But yeah, I've been lucky to have had 11 in the day as well, which probably meant more of the daytime fish, just because, it's so rare to get a fish like that in the day. I've had bigger spinning. I've had them up to £17 in a day spinning. That was some fish, that was.
I guess you meet some sort of names you can say in sea trout fishing, like you got Cyril Fox and Jamie Harris on the doorstep there, really, haven't you?
Yeah.
I guess you know both of them well, yeah?
Both of them great characters, great men. Cyril, well, I did guide for a period at Abercoffey, which was kind of the link into now owning the opposite side of the junction. Jamie again, I used to fish a lot of Golden Grove. So yeah, done a lot with Jamie and actually lived next door to him for a while. So I've listened to, since we spoke last Friday, I've gone on a bit of a binge on your old podcasts, and God, there's some awesome ones on there. I went back and listened to the John Graham ones. Wow.
That was amazing.
I changed my mind. I said to you, the best podcast I'd ever listened to was this Arnie Balderson, and it was superb, but you won't beat those John Graham ones.
No. And you know what? Numerous people since I started the podcast, they said, you want to listen to John Graham. Do you want to meet him, rather? And I met him once, briefly. I was doing work for Trout Fisherman at the time, and he was on the river. But, that was a long time ago.
Right.
And then I heard that he wasn't well. So anyway, I think I contacted Scott first.
Okay.
And he said, this is his number. So I phoned him, and he was going through some treatment. And I didn't want to push it. And then he said, I want to do it. I'll do it, he said. And then anyway, I managed to get a day together. It was gold.
It's incredible.
Yeah. And not only the knowledge, the passion come across, didn't it? Not only the knowledge he had, he was hilarious. Some of the stories he was saying.
Oh, yeah, he was, and his wife in the background.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
but I tell you what, I think it's Saturday I listened to those. I didn't want to get out the car. I was in the car. I thought I got to listen to the rest of this. I drove straight down my place, when I was sort of imagining what it must have been like back in those days that he was describing.
Yeah,
it was amazing.
And what didn't come across on because it's all audio like it is now. But I was sitting in his living room. I was one side, and he was the other side with his wife sitting next to him, and he was telling the story, and then he'd stand up in the middle of the story. And he'd come he would come over and his nose would be next to my nose. You see, boy, he was going. And he said, and he pulled my jumper, he did. And he was like pulling it as if to say, and then he pulled. And I could feel it. And it was another tap. And then it was, and he was in my face.
The sound effects.
Yeah, his face was, he was there in the moment, Brilliant.
The only time I'd ever interacted with him, I used to tie flies on the Worcester stand now and again in different shows and things.
Yeah.
And no matter what show it was, he'd always, I didn't really appreciate who he was then.
Yeah.
But that's where I remember him from, was the shows.
Yeah. He showed me his fly tying vice and his kit and everything. And then he said, and then he got all his fly boxes out, right? And he was going through the flies. Have this one, have this one, have this one. So he gave me, 30 of his flies.
Wow.
Yeah. And he didn't know where to put them in, right? And then he said, why do you know what to put them in? And then he told his wife then, give me your glasses case, he said. So she gave the glasses case now. He filled her glasses case with these flies, and the jumbo especially, because it's his fly. Yeah. So he gave them to me, and afterwards, I've got them ready. I'm going to do a frame and put them in the frame. And in the middle, I'm going to put his picture and the quote. I don't know if you remember one of the podcasts. He sort of drew up this image. I can't remember the words now. He's saying they call it a gypsy night where the moon is out and it was like poetry.
It was like Dylan Thomas going off on one.
Yeah, but he was the genuine article.
It's like his whole fishing, career was like a big poem, wasn't it? That's the way he saw it. It was, he thought of himself as being so privileged to have experienced what he did. Yeah, the link with Cyril and the opposite bank. It's amazing looking back, you see how you can connect the dots up. Back in 2011, I went to Tierra del Fuego which was my second visit. First time I went, I was only 16. And we arrive in Rio Grande to go and fish the Rio Grande, and I jump in the lodge pickup truck that takes us to the lodge with two South Africans, Doug and Angus.
Yeah.
And it turned out both of them had been fishing at Abercoffey during the summer for years. So I went all the way to Tierra del Fuego and bumped into two guys who knew my home river very well. Fished with them all week, and great guys. And what they said was, would you like to join us at Abercoffey this July? And, spend the weekend with us and fish and have some fun. So that's what I did. And that was my introduction to Cyril. Arthur Howard, I obviously became familiar then with Arthur Howard on the opposite bank. And as soon as the vacancy became available for his beat, I had the phone call. So it's amazing, really. You could connect the dots up, but had I not gone to Argentina, would I have had the introduction to Abercoffey, and then would I have met Arthur Howard?
I've heard the name Arthur Howard. I've heard the name many times. People talk about him. But Cyril, I went to see back, I think it was 2 years ago now, and I met him down at Abercoffey and had a great chat at the podcast with him, and he came up with some funny stories, mind.
He's got some good stories. Yeah.
And I don't know, it was sad actually. I don't know if they'd done anything with it, but there was talk at the time of turning that lodge, you could say, in Abercoffey, into just like a holiday let home. Have they done that, or is it still a
I believe they have, yeah. Yeah, I know, what a shame. It was a fantastic rod room.
It was huge.
Probably one of the best because of its location, and then, the items they had in there on the walls, and it was a great spot. So it is a great shame.
Yeah, in your early days, I noticed that, you said you fished the river with your grandfather, but you also fished for Wales, didn't you? The international team, for the youth.
Yes, I did. Great memories. So, that came about. I'd gone to Gelliad Game Fair with my grandfather one year, and we went into the Salmon and Trout Association tent, and Moff Morgan, God rest his soul, was sat in the tent, and speaking to him about fishing, and he was telling me all about the Welsh team and the trials, and I said, I would love to have a go at that. So he said, come outside with me. He said, you can have a cast now on the casting platform, and out we went. So that was the introduction to the Welsh team scene, and I trialled for the first time in the year 2000 at the age of 11. That was actually Sabran. And there were a lot doing the trials back then. That gradually tapered off as I went through the youth. But I got first reserve. And at that point, the reserve, which I didn't know at the time, I hadn't travelled with the team for years. And credit to Mark Morgan, God rest his soul, I was the first reserve in years to actually be allowed to travel and practice with the team. And, that was so valuable, because at that age, to gain that experience that year, practicing and fishing with the team was fantastic. And then I fished every year from that point, right through till 2007, including 2 World Championships in Norway and Czech Republic.
Nice.
Did you fish for the Welsh youth, Ceri?
Not the youth. No, I didn't. I didn't enter the youth. I was 17 when I started doing the competitions, and I went straight into the senior team then. I didn't do the youth.
Right. Right, okay.
Lochstyle, I didn't do the rivers.
Well, funny enough, the World Championship in Norway, that was the first World Championship they'd held in a long time for the youth. There was actually 2 planned before that. Norway took it on. There was one planned in Swedish Lapland, and the other one was planned for Donegal, Ireland. But neither of those happened, so it kept getting postponed, and eventually Norway agreed to take it on. And that was the start of it again then, because you say the year after Norway, it was Czech Republic. Both were great experiences, and very fond memories.
Have you actually been to Ireland? You said it was postponed or cancelled. Have you been over here?
I have, yeah. We actually fished an international on Lough Corrib.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah, really, really nice. I'd love to go back, actually, and experience that again.
Next time you think of planning and coming over, you'll have to let me know.
Oh, I'd love that, yeah. Definitely.
I've been busy, like you said you were fishing the other day. Come, the end of the season here, I normally just shut off then. I don't fish. I'm just working on my boat now and doing some renovation work, and TLC is going to take a few weeks, but it'll be ready nice now for next year. That's my project for the winter.
I know your obsession is the Ferox, Ceri.
Yeah.
What initially got you into the Ferox?
Well, I came on 88 was the first time I came over here, and fly fishing for years and years, and I just loved it. You can't help but in the bars around here, around the lake, there's mounted fish, cased fish around the walls, and you're sitting there and you're drinking pints and you're looking up and you're thinking, people say, why don't you just take a photograph? Way back then, if you just went to a pub and see pictures on the wall, it doesn't give the same feeling. You're sitting there looking up at these fish, you think, So then I started, and I had one. The first one I had when I got into it was £8, and I didn't look back then. I was totally obsessed. And then I was having, bigger one, teens then, 14s, 15s, and it was like, I won the record now. So I was like, it just took over. It was an obsession. It really was an obsession. But now, the last couple of years, I just love my pleasure fishing now, fly fishing. I do obviously have days with the Ferox, and I will do again now next year. I've started guiding the Ferox, actually. I've got some bookings this week, which is nice. Yeah,
and you said next year that you hopefully to increase that again, was it? And hoping to do a lot more guiding for them.
Yeah, well, I guide now with fly fishing on the lake. And I've started now. I've decided I will take a few. Only like you were saying, you're only going to do a few nights. I'm going to limit it to maybe 10 to 12 days a year when I take clients out. I do enjoy when I'm trolling Ferox fishing. I love being by myself. Yeah. So I want me time as well. That's the main thing. But it's nice to share experiences. I've taken some guys out. I took this one guy. He was a dentist from Dublin, and he's one of the Patreons, actually. He probably listened to this now. And he came over from Dublin, and he had, we had a pike, sort of, I don't know, £15, and he had a £12 brown and one about just over 10. So he's absolutely over the moon. So we took some pictures. He said, do us a favour, he said. Don't put these on social media, will you, he said. Because he's a partner with a dental practice he's got. And he told him he was on the sick. But he just needed to come out and get a ferox with me. So,
yeah.
But you meet some great people, don't you? And guiding is nice.
Oh, yeah, you do. And the last couple of years, I've one of my favourite destinations now is the Helmsdale in Scotland, and this coming spring will be my 11th spring on the river and 16th visit in 11 years.
Wow.
The Helmsdale is magnificent, and I love that river. But the last couple of years, I've started going to Norway. And, the fishing aside, it's the people I've met there. And it certainly makes a trip, But, funny enough, I met a really nice Finnish guy, Martin. He's coming over to fish with me on the Helmsdale next spring. So it just shows, you meet these great people along the way.
You meet like-minded people in this game, don't you? The same mentality, and they stay friends for life.
Yeah, they do.
So you've done a bit of travelling then. You said you went to Tierra del Fuego. Anywhere else?
The first trip we went on to Argentina, we actually did a 19-day exploratory trip of Tierra del Fuego and then over into Chile. So I was 16 when I went on that trip. And at the time, the trip felt like it turned into a bit of a disaster for many reasons. Just, if it could go wrong, it went wrong. Plus, I had a shortage of money in those days, and a lot of the issues that went wrong involved spending money to put them right. Whether it was a hire car, them giving a hire car to somebody else, you had to hire a different car. And of course, this was put together ourselves. And, looking back, it was incredible. It was totally self-organised. And look, it was fantastic. Looking back, it was an adventure of a lifetime. We fished the Rio Grande. We fished another smaller river for sea trout, which was superb. We fished a lot of the mountain lakes for big brown trout. And then we ended up on a lake called Lago Fagnano. Now, this lake, I did look it up the other night. I'm sure it's 100 kilometres long.
Wow.
There's an incredible length on it. And there was a river that came out of this lake that supposedly held a run of big sea trout. So we drove, I don't know how many miles, into the middle of nowhere to this lake. And we heard that there was this guy living there, Herman his name was, who lived on the banks of this lake, who'd packed all his stuff up there on horseback 50 years previously. And only by the time we went there had the military actually built a road to his house. So the deal is that he was going to take us by this boat across the lake and to the mouth of the river, basically, where the river ran out of the lake. And by this point, we were basically out of food. We had hardly any food left, so we were eating the fish that we caught. And I didn't want to go. I was, by this point, I sort of had enough, and I didn't like the sound of it. Anyway, I got talked into it. 5:30 one morning, we jump in this dinghy and off we go off the lake. He drops us off. We fished that day, and by this point, Ceri, it had been tough, and we were down to one meal a day. We were walking miles. I had no energy left, and the river was hugely challenging. It was terrible terrain. It turned out most of it was too fast to fish.
No.
So that turned into a bit of a disaster. But that particular day, he dropped us off. There were three of us, me and another friend, had got back to our tents after we'd set them up. And we got back and everything had been torn out of our tents and scattered all over the mountainside.
Bloody hell.
I think we were that hungry at that point. We were sort of, we were in a different planet, and we didn't really think much of it. And then that was it. We went back fishing after that, put our stuff back in the tent, went back fishing, had food, our one meal of the day, went to bed. And I can remember being woken up to this horrific noise in my ear. And it was like a screeching or a roar. So I was here in the tent with one friend. So I nudged him. He woke up in a great panic. Whatever this thing was that was by my ear, there's another one at the bottom of the tent, scratching away at the bottom of the tent, trying to get in.
Freak you out.
I can hear them running about the tents. There was loads of them, whatever they were. So this must have gone on for 20 minutes or so. Us shouting, kicking the side of the tents, trying, put them off. And in the end, they went quiet, thankfully. But, to this day, we still don't know what they were. Whatever it was that was trying to attack the tents that night, of course, we never got out the tents. But a few years later, I was watching a documentary program on TV, and they were in the Andes Mountains, not that far from where we would have been. And they were filming a group of mountain lions. Pumas. Yeah, so my assumption is that it was either a mother puma and cubs.
You weren't the only one angry then. They were probably looking for it as well.
And I think we weren't the first ones to go there, and whatever these animals were, had become accustomed to visitors coming with food. So they knew what to expect, but it was terrifying at the time.
Yeah.
Absolutely terrifying. Needless to say, next day, Herman was taking us back down the lake.
I love this wilderness, totally wilderness fishing. I remember I went one of my first trips up to Sweden. It was up the north of Sweden, Havlingen, up in the mountains.
Fantastic.
We had a helicopter take us up, and then somebody had to row us in across the lake to where this cabin was. It was in the middle of nowhere, and it was like, the whole trip was brilliant. A bit unnerving being so cut off. The guy we had, the guide, he had one of these like radio satellite things. So if we were there for 3 days, and if we needed something, that was the emergency thing. But that's all that was there. There was a cabin, no electricity, a bunk bed in the room, a table and 3 chairs. Now, the guide, his name was Per. He slept on the floor, and me and I had a mate, Andrew, with me at the time. We were on the bunk beds, and the fishing was hard. Like you said, you'd walk for miles. Really bad terrain.
Yeah.
But on this one day, and he was very dry, he's become a really good friend now, Per Eriksson, his name is. Each day we'd stop outside, and he would have berries, elk meat, reindeer, this sort of thing. And then he'd brew a coffee. It's great, fantastic, I loved it. But every day then he'd give us 1 can of lager. I'd have a lager, Andrew would have a can of lager. And he didn't have nothing, he just had orange juice. So on the 3rd day now, I said, Per, how come you not drinking? And this guy, if you imagine, he's about 6'6", and he had a big knife strapped to his leg. If you come across a bear, you'd want to be with him, right? He was the real McCoy. So he's very serious as well. And I said, Per, how come you're not drinking? And he says, I do not drink alcohol. And I thought, oh, right. Why is that? Any reason? And he says, I do not drink alcohol. Too many female hormones in alcohol. I said, how'd you work that out then? He said, start talking shit and can't drive.
Brilliant.
But I didn't expect it to come from him, It was so dry. I was roaring then, But
the foods you described there, then they're not very high in calories, are they? And what I think at those points, what you need is calories. I know that. We wanted biscuits and chocolate and sweets.
You always felt hungry after eating.
Yeah. And the reason we ran out of food was when we crossed the border from Argentina into Chile. A lot of the food that we bought, say half of it was fresh produce, they stopped us taking it through. We weren't allowed. So we cooked what we could. They allowed us to cook the fresh produce in the checkpoint. But of course, you were on the timer then, that you had to eat it within a certain period because, we were going camping in the wilds. So we had to eat all of that as quickly as we could. But yeah, I think I lost a stone in 8 days. Starving.
Well, going back closer to home now, going back to the river, the stretch you've got, the Pontgaredig stretch now, is it good salmon fishing there?
Superb salmon beat, Gary, and salmon at the minute is probably my main passion, and probably why I fell in love with the beat so much. Having taken it over in 2019, it was a slow start really, and I didn't have a huge amount of success. Of course, I was learning the beat throughout 2019 and the beginning of 2020, but we came out of lockdown. I think, was it the May, Kerry, we came out of lockdown, or we were allowed to go fishing? We had a gorgeous start to the summer that year. And we didn't have rain for weeks, and the river shrunk back to its bones. And, of course, very little fishing up to that point until we were eventually allowed to go. Then it rained, end of July, and the river came up, and we had water at last. And what followed that water was an incredible run of salmon. And I had a phenomenal year. Never thought I'd see fish numbers like that run in the Towi again, in terms of salmon anyway. It was fantastic from the end of July all the way through to the end of the season. And they just kept coming. And we kept having water as well. Sort of every couple of weeks, we kept having a little top-up of water, which kept the river in good order. And the fish just kept coming. Now, I think that year, I had 27 salmon to my own rod off that beat, and 24 of those were on the fly. Wow. That's what led me to see the potential of the beat. I got it then. I understood, why it was such a good beat, because lots of those fish were destined for the coffee, I believe, and they'll come up through my beat there on the junction, and they get the smell of the coffee water coming in, and it just slows them up enough that they'll pause, or will often pause before then going up the coffee. And that season it certainly made cutting the grass a lot easier. But they were good fish as well. A lot of them were multi-sea wintered fish. And there was also a great grilled run as well. I can remember I could follow pods of fish coming up from the bridge, the lower end of the beat for me. You could see them head and tail in coming up the beat, which then gave me great knowledge of where the running lines were through the beat, and where the lies were as well. So I learned a hell of a lot that season, and I fished a hell of a lot too.
Now you've got that beat now. Do you actually get out more, or is it less, or what sort of season has it been?
I say the fishing effort has probably been the same, although I'd say it's got a slightly different feel to it now that it's mine, although it hasn't really sunk in, to be honest with you, and still coming to terms with it. As a young boy, certainly I did anyway, dreamt of owning my own piece of water.
Brilliant.
And, to have achieved that, it was a massive thing. And just back to my grandfather, very often, say I'd nag him senseless to take me fishing, and if he didn't feel like going fishing, the next best thing was we'd go for a spin up the River Towi bridges, and say we'd start at Llandilo and work our way back down. And the amount of times I stood on that bridge with him, you just see him glaring upstream at Abercoffey Estate, and you could just see, in his face that he always dreamt of fishing that water. So, that's a great feeling as well. It's just a shame, really, that he's not here to experience it, but I'm sure he's looking down from somewhere.
I'm sure. But there's another fish that comes up the river as well, isn't it? Is the shad?
Yes, and lots of them. I see their numbers increasing. Now, they have been undertaking a shad tagging program the last couple of years. I'm not sure what the results of that are, but from what I can see, numbers have certainly increased, and hundreds of them, and they'll typically arrive early May, and then depending on whether you have a spate towards the mid to end of June, they can stay in the river for sometimes 6 to 8 weeks.
Do they?
Yeah, and they seem to populate that lower end of the river. Supposedly they're quite sensitive to water temperatures, so don't go much above Tristloyn Bridge. I think Jamie gets very few up with him at Golden Grove.
Right.
But down the lower end of the river with us is packed with them.
I bet it's fun in the night when they spawn in.
Oh, they can be a right pain,
It's in the night, isn't it?
It is, yeah, and as nice as it is having them in the river, because I think there's only 2 rivers in the country actually that have this particular shad, so that highly protected. But at night, the river comes alive. Once they start spawning, they'll be up on the surface of the water at night, thrashing. Yeah, it's a hell of a thing to experience, especially if you've never experienced it before, and you go night fishing and experience that for the first time. You would wonder what the hell is going on, because they make a right commotion.
I've never experienced it in the night, purely because the rivers I've caught shad before was the Wye and the Mono. They're not waters you'd spend the night fishing because there's no sea trout.
No, of course. And I've been used to it, from a young kid, fishing with my grandfather on that lower stretch down at Abergwili, which was very commonplace. And he used to curse them because, he always suspected that they'd actually put the sea trout off with all the commotion going on. Although I do remember him catching plenty of fish when they were about, but there were a lot more fish about in those days too.
So, what's your plans for the river next year?
Yeah, so when I purchased the beat, I never actually purchased it with the intention of letting any fish in. First and foremost, I wanted to buy it to secure it, for myself and secure my enjoyment. But as time has gone on this year, I thought, it would be a shame really not to have people come there and experience it all. So next season, I'm planning on offering a limited number of nights of guided fishing for sea trout. Now, this is quite exciting, I think, because as far as I'm aware, it'll be the first time that rods have ever been let on that beat in its history.
Yeah.
So, I'm quite excited about it.
So for people who are interested, what would they do? Have to get in touch with you, yeah?
Yeah, so the best way for them to get in touch with me will be through my Facebook page, Pontgaredig Estate Fishing. My email is on there, and they can also keep an eye on the page there for updates regarding next year's availability, which I hope to finalise over Christmas. So come early January, I hope to have a bit of a schedule together.
Well, I'm looking forward to coming over, because even though I'm over here now in Ireland, I'll be coming over numerous times next season. I'll join you one evening on the river.
It'd be a pleasure to have you over. Yeah.
I look forward to that. I appreciate as well, you mentioned that for the Patreons of the channel, you're offering a prize next year for a competition, which we'll do a draw at some point next week, for somebody to have an evening with yourself on the river. Yeah,
I think you're doing a great job with the podcast, Ceri, and long may it continue. So, as a contribution towards the channel and what have you, I'd like to offer a nice guiding for one of your listeners, that they touch base with me, and we can arrange something then that works for them and me, and we'll try and get a night booked.
Well, I've thoroughly enjoyed our chat, Gavin. There's one more question I want to ask, and you know what it's going to be. Where would you want to be to make your last cast?
Yeah, no, I knew this question was going to come up, so I've been giving it some serious thought. And it is a tough question to answer. And I've been flip-flopping back and forth between a couple of places. And what I've settled on is, providing I can have a full day, I'd love to go to the lower Yokanga tent camp Russia. That was on the top of my bucket list. And it would have to be as it was. It's changed now, and I think they've built a lodge there. It's not the same as what I wanted to experience. So if I could have my last cast, my last day, it would be on the lower Yokanga. The reason it is because we can't go to Russia at the minute. So whether we ever will be able to again, who knows?
Nice one. Cheers, Gavin. Take care.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. Yeah, really appreciate it. Speak soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
If you've enjoyed this podcast and want to listen to more, please consider becoming a Patreon. We will get weekly podcasts and access to over 200 episodes, behind-the-scenes photography to go with each episode, plus other exclusive content and prizes. To become a Patreon, visit patreon.com/casting with Ceri Jones, or you can find the link on my website, castingwithcerijones.com. That's all for now. Tight lines, and may they always be up in the wave.